I am a true entrepreneurial visionary. So Gino Wickman wrote a book. It's wonderful, Rocket Fuel. He says, you are either a visionary or an integrator, and you are not both. And what I absolutely love about this book is that as society, we think visionaries, these amazing people, and they, the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world, but we could not get anything done. Literally could not get anything done if it weren't for the integrators that surround us. And I have been very, very fortunate to have some incredible integrators surrounding me.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to look at strong leadership. What does it mean to be a strong leader? Well, it's a little bit different than what you think. And today we have a special guest. She is the CEO of LeadCoverage. They do marketing, but specifically for the supply chain industry. They're very focused, and that's a good thing. And we are going to talk about strong leadership. Kara is actually a pistol. She's got full of energy and full of life. And she actually talks about how direct she is. Super direct is the word she used, and about how that comes across, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but why strong leadership is very important to company growth. She talks about the things that often, kind of swirl around and get in the way of her being the leader that she's being. And it really is a great conversation. It's honest, transparent. Hopefully you'll find it as enjoyable as I did in being the host of this show. And as always, my job is to help you be the best leader you can be. Maybe you need to be a strong leader. Maybe you need to be a little bit less strong in certain areas, but evolving is the key. I've been doing this for 10 years. I help leaders understand themselves, be a mirror, give them tools, give them the conversations, frankly, they're not having with anyone else. And it really is the purpose of why I am living today, is to be able to give these conversations to help people grow their business and grow their teams and be the leaders that they really want to be. We also do another service called leadership development. We take your managers, turn them into leaders. We give them a strong foundation around leadership skills and the language of leadership that allows them to grow and move together. That, my friends, is really powerful work. I just got off a call today with a client that was talking about how important it was to build the team around her and for them to be able to give difficult conversations and the level of confidence and effectiveness. And that is a big part of that. If you have any questions about either one of these things, go to genehammett.com, schedule a call with me. Let's talk about what's going on, what you really want it to be like. And I've been doing this for over a decade. I know I can shed insight back and wisdom around what's going on. We can create a plan together. If you like that plan, you can execute on it. If you don't like the plan, throw it away. If you want me to help you, we can talk about that as well. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, here's the interview with Kara. Kara, how are you?
Living the dream. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am excited about having you too. We met last week in person and didn't even realize we had an interview today.
That was awesome. You're like, we just met. I'm like, I don't think we did.
I guess I'm not that memorable.
No, you had a very different outfit on. For sure.
I did. I was wearing different clothes. That was probably it.
And there were a lot of men in the room. So
there were,
yeah.
But I wasn't memorable. You were distinctly standing out from everyone else. And it wasn't
also the only woman in the room. Yeah.
It wasn't because of that. It was the personality.
Thank you.
We're going to have a great conversation today about marketing and sales alignment and about what that means inside your business. But I want to give you a chance to frame your company in. Tell us about LeadCoverage.
Sure. So LeadCoverage, we do anything that touches the sales and marketing funnel, but very specifically for supply chain. So our hyper niche is all things trucks, planes, and boats. And we do analyst relations, public relations, marketing. We're a HubSpot diamond shop. We can make the first call for you. We do revenue operations, all of the stuff that touches the funnel, but very, very specifically for B2B supply chain. What we've learned is transferable to pretty much any industry, but I very much believe that your outsourced marketing shop should be an expert in the industry versus just an expert in marketing.
I agree with you. I worked with a lot of marketing companies. We probably didn't go through this, but one of the things I've noticed is people that don't focus, they're generalist in their approach, are generalist in their ability to provide elegant solutions and innovative impact, and they're pretty poor at actually ROI. But the niche companies I find have a a significant advantage because they know what works and what doesn't work, and they have their finger on the pulse. What would you add to that as far as being a niche company and your ability to get results?
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is the ability to speak the language of any supply chain professional the minute we get on the phone. So we haven't spent enough time together for me to know, but there's a big difference between LCL and LTL. We think of the supply chain as the physical movement of goods, the tech that moves the goods, and the money that moves those goods, the relationships we have in the marketplace, understanding the strategies that have helped other companies be successful and being able to repeat those strategies has just created a value for our clients that we wouldn't have had we decided to be generalists and have some supply chain and some healthcare and some retail and some e-com. And very specifically, we are all B2B. So we only do business to business for supply chain. So we don't do, UPS home delivery is not our jam. This is very, very sexy companies that do the $2 trillion worth of really hardcore delivery of, big trucking companies, technology companies for trucking companies, et cetera. But when we walk onto a trade show floor that is very specific for our niche, we can get you press interviews that you couldn't get if you weren't using us. We can get you connections. We can help with funding even because we've been in the space for so long that we can make connections that wouldn't happen if you used a different shop.
Well, I love it. I always ask marketing companies and whatnot, what's the future look like for marketing? So if you were going 3 years from now, what would you say would be different than today as it relates to marketing and sales alignment?
Yes. The number one thing that is going to change will be intent data. So some of your other guests might be talking about AI. We've actually had AI for quite some time. So Lavender is a great tool for writing sales emails. Jasper is a great tool for turning a blog post into many social media posts, etc. If you've been on the cutting edge of this stuff, it hasn't been free like ChatGPT, but it's been available, right? So AI has sort of been in our wheelhouse for a minute. But what hasn't been available is intent data at scale. So what does that really mean? There are two major intent data providers, Demandbase and 6sense. They're both really meant for Salesforce enterprise users, and they're really expensive. They're super bulky. The data is really sexy, but it takes like a couple of people to get it out. And there are some really sexy tools coming that will connect to HubSpot, which is really meant for sort of the mid-market, although we do some enterprises using HubSpot, but for the mid-market SMB, and then the cost of it is coming down. So there's a tool called Propensity that will sell you intent data by the drink. So instead of buying an $80,000 tool, you can buy a $6,000, $8,000 campaign, depending on number of records. So I think the future of B2B marketing is all about intent, and intent has to do with are they interested? Are they the right buyer, the right ICP? So we're going to get even more sophisticated on target personas, but it's all going to be based in data. And so your marketers they're not technologists in that they don't code, but they are technology super users for sure.
Fantastic. I'm excited about these changes that are coming about. I know that you talked with our team about the importance of marketing and sales alignment. I'm going to give you a chance on that, but I'm probably going to call an audible on our conversation today. Hopefully you're okay with that.
Yeah.
But what do you think people need to understand about marketing and sales alignment that they don't seem to understand? I know a lot of people would be able to say at a surface level, but I feel like you have a grasp of these things. What do you wish they really understood?
Yeah. So our point of view is that marketing serves sales, which is not sexy coming from a marketer. I'm both a marketer and a salesperson. Marketing serves sales. That's it. That's the whole story. Revenue is the ultimate goal, no matter who you are, marketing or sales, whether you're delivering MQLs or top line impressions or all the way driven ROI to the bottom line. It is all about closed deals. And it's really interesting. Airbnb had a massive change in their their marketing strategy in the last 2 years. So they went from spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on paid media to really going back to the brand and using a brand story sort of positioning. Now, they're B2C, we have nothing to do with them, right? Like I don't have a lot of information about the Airbnb story, but I can tell you that the same thing is true in B2B. Getting back to basics, having marketing support sales, making sure that marketing and sales are working together and not separately is probably the most important factor for any successful marketing team.
I want to switch gears with this because your company just made the Inc. list. Is this the first year you made it?
We did. Thanks so much. Yes, first year. First year we were even able.
And I know you have to qualify, and those that are listening here probably don't know the exact rules, and we won't go through that together, but you can Google this, or you can go into ChatGPT and type in exactly what it takes to qualify, and they'll tell you right away. But I want to ask you about your leadership style. You have 25 employees, give or take. You probably have contractors and partners. How would you frame in your leadership style that has made your company successful?
That's such a good question. I am a true entrepreneurial visionary. So Gino Wickman wrote a book. It's wonderful, Rocket Fuel. He says, you are either a visionary or an integrator, and you are not both. And what I absolutely love about this book is that as society, we think visionaries are these amazing people, and they, the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world, but we could not get anything done, literally could not get anything done if it weren't for the integrators that surround us. And I have been very, very fortunate to have some incredible integrators surrounding me. So I go off and my COO calls me the idea monkey. So I come back from, usually the entrepreneur organization puts on some event like Harvard or MIT, and I go away for 3 or 4 days, and I come back with a book full of ideas of things we can do to change the business. And then they sort of help me go through that list and decide on the 1 or 2 that we're going to implement. And so my leadership style, I'm super direct and almost to a fault in terms of I can be a little aggressive. I can feel a little aggressive. It's also kind of weird for a woman to be just as direct as I am. And I have a really new employee who shared with me, it's going to be hard for me to work for you because there is no passive in your aggressive, like 0. So I say exactly what I mean, exactly when I mean it. And I very rarely pull punches. And it can be kind of hard to take that amount of directness. And so my integrators that surround me are usually the first ones to get that direct feedback. Like, this is a problem, go fix it, ×5. And then, okay, we're going to go figure out which one is actually meaningful, and we'll go do that. So I've been very fortunate to surround myself with people that can take my crazy ideas and then turn them into what actually needs to happen to move the business forward.
So how does being super direct get in the way of you leading this amazing team?
How doesn't it get in the way? I think that's the better question. It gets in the way all the time. It gets in the way every single day. Every day I have stepped on someone's toes or said something that someone took offense to, or didn't, couch my feedback in a shit sandwich like you're supposed to, and just sort of was like, well, you're not doing a very good job, are you? I mean, oftentimes I come off as super abrasive and direct, but I think if you've worked for me for a minute and you appreciate, actually, there's a really good story, Jean. Last week, we were getting ready for a QBR and something had not been done, right, for this QBR. And I was pretty furious. There were like 17 people on this call, and there was no reason for us to be using this many company resources, and no one had done this one thing. And I just sort of hit them all with the same shoe, right? I didn't direct it to anyone. I just said, every single person on this call is capable of doing this. I'm going to leave. I'm going to walk away. Someone's going to take responsibility for getting this done. And I'm going to come back in about an hour, and it better be finished, right? And when I came back and it was finished, and everyone sort of calmed down from sort of we call them butt clench moments, when you sort of get caught having not done something you're supposed to do. I said, I hope you all understand that I don't do this for me. And I don't do this to be mean. I don't enjoy finding things that you guys haven't finished, or the things that aren't done up to par. But if we're a service company, and if we deliver this the way that you all finished it, and the client fires us, you lose your jobs, and I won't lose my job, right? Like, I'm good. Like, I'll go get more clients and I'll be fine, but you will lose your jobs. Like, this is a big client. This is a big deal for us. And so I hope that I've instilled on the team that the client work that we do and the way we do it and the level of expectation that I have for them has nothing to do with Kara Brown. It has nothing to do with my expectation or who I am as a person. It has everything to do with what we promise to deliver to clients. And if it's not there, then we have to work really hard to get it there, because it's not about me and how I want things done, but it's about what they expect.
Now, Kara just mentioned something very briefly, the shit sandwich. What that is exactly is when you've got something bad to say to someone, some bad feedback, or difficult conversations, you give them 2 slices of bread and then you put the shit in the middle, which means you say something good at the beginning and then you give them the bad news, and then you say something good at the end. So they leave kind of, with a good taste in their mouth, if you will. Well, I know it's a very terrible analogy to talk about this, but here's the thing. I believe in being direct and not, sandwiching these good things in there. Now, I'm not saying hold that back. I think you should always be telling people and recognizing them and rewarding them and really having the conversations about what impact they're making in a good way. But that gives you the right to sometimes go, all right, I know that you're strong in these other areas, but we need to talk about this one area. It's something that you have repeatedly not been able to perform at or not understand, or it's just getting in the way of you being the person that you want to be. It's getting in the way of your next promotion. Be direct. The shit sandwich does not work, in my opinion. Back to Kara. I want to go deeper with you on all this stuff. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
I feel like you're an open book, so I can probably probe into these things.
Yeah.
How would you describe how you're evolving as you mature as a CEO of a company?
That's a really good question. Probably better asked for someone who isn't me, right? For the folks that are around me, like, hey, how has she changed? I think that I expect more out of my leaders than I probably ever had before. But I also am doing a better job hiring those leaders. And I'm definitely doing a much better job saying no. So in the thick of 2022, when everyone was quitting and the Great Resignation was happening, we hired bodies to have bodies, right? And a lot of them were the right body. We went through a ton of churn. It was super painful for the team. And so I've sort of sat back and come up with some strategies to keep people not happier longer necessarily. Like if you don't want to work here, it's fine, but to find the right people to put on the team that share my values, right? That share my values as a person. So I think if you share the values that I share, which like I'm in the office every day, right? 8:38 is our stand up and I'm here until at least 5, maybe 6 every day. So I have a value of being in person, right? We get on airplanes and go see clients. We go to trade shows. We are feet on the street. So if you don't value that, if you don't value being in person with your colleagues occasionally, and you really value being full-time remote and not having to come to an office ever, like we're probably not a fit, and that's okay, right? And so I think I've become a lot more okay with some people just not being a fit and saying no.
Well, I asked Kara a question, and I want to ask you the same question. I asked her, how was she evolving? And she answered it. My hope is that you ask yourself the same question. You take a moment to say, you know what, here's who I am today, and I'm evolving into this next level. Maybe you look back over the last year. Here's who I was, and now I'm a different person. But what's most important is not necessarily looking backwards, it's looking forwards. Who are you today that's getting in the way of you being the leader that you want to be? If you do this really honestly with yourself, and it's hard, but you will find some insight and some wisdom that will allow you to move forward differently. Maybe you'll show up differently. Maybe you'll be more calm. Maybe you'll be more focused. Maybe you'll be more confident, unshakable confidence even. There's lots of ways of describing who you're being now versus who you want to become. This is one of the central parts of my business. If this is something of curiosity to you and what that really means and how we use it to grow businesses and grow people, then all you have to do is reach out to me. Happy to help you explain it, see how it works specifically with you, and give you as much as I can on understanding that so you can move forward with confidence and peace. Back to Kara. I know this question is not easy, but you did a very good job describing some of the details of evolving. I want to also ask you about values. You don't know probably much about my podcast. When we focus on fast growth companies, you know, it's the most common conversation that happens inside of these fast growth companies is we live our values, we operate, we operationalize, whatever it may be. Would you say, how would you frame in the way you guys approach the values of your organization?
So we definitely have them. I used to think they were kind of BS until I spent some time with the EO community and someone told me you have to hire and fire based on values. And so we had to come up with values that made sense for us to fire on, right? Like if you break a bunch of these, there's going to be a reason that you're not here anymore. And one of our core values is embrace tough conversations, which frankly just comes out of my personality. Because if you don't embrace tough conversations, it's going to be really hard to work for me, right? Because I just sort of a whole day's worth of tough conversations in an hour. And, we have other ones like yes and is a great core value. It reminds the team that, the answer is always yes to clients. The answer is yes to each other. But yes and doesn't always mean yes, I'm going to get it done right now. It might mean yes, and we're going to put that on the parking lot for next quarter or whatever it is. So core values have become more important to us as we've gotten bigger and scaled, and they've really gotten important to us as we've sort of figured out hiring. And if there was one thing I could go back and change in this scaling sort of crazy world that we've lived in the last couple of years, it would be figuring out hiring sooner. I am no longer allowed to hire. It is not my job. Like, we found someone who's really good at it, but it took us a couple of years to find that person. And if I sort of call an audible and say, we're going to hire this person because I want to hire them and it's my company, 100% of the time we have failed. And so I have learned through many, many trials that I don't get to make that call anymore. It has to be the team that decides who's going to be the next player on the team.
I want to ask you one question and maybe another one is follow up, but like, we talked about the disadvantages of being super direct, how it gets in the way, but let's talk just briefly about the advantages of it, because I see some really incredible conversations you're having that are very explicit, for people to misunderstand. And the level of standard at which everyone lives to is at highest levels. What else would you say the impact is being super direct?
A really solid impact, I think. A good thing that has come out is everyone seems to have a PTSD experience with a passive aggressive boss, someone who you worked for and you never were 100% sure where you stood. Like, did they just ask me if I wanted to do this thing? Did they tell me I have to do this thing? Like, there's some people sort of being wishy-washy? There is no question what I want you to do and when I want you to do it. Like, there is no, and there, there's also like, this is actually, it's a funny story. One of the things about me is that I really hate email. I hate to email. I would, if I could go back in time and stop the person who made email from being born, I would. Like, I just think email is a bane on society. So I basically don't read it. And my team knows that if you really want to irritate me, you'll say something like, well, I sent you an email. And I'll be like, oh, so you think you're done? You think your job is finished because you sent your boss an email on this thing you were supposed to make sure that was in her, And so, yeah, we don't use those excuses. And it's taught them that most executives behave sort of like this. I've met a couple of guys that read every single email with every single word that hits their inbox, and I think they're bananas. And so it helps them understand the people that we're working for, right? So when your client doesn't respond to your email, or when they don't give you exactly what you need, or they answer half the questions that you put to them, like, they're just like me. They're super busy. They probably get 10,000 emails a day, and you're going to need to follow up. So in addition to being super clear and direct on what I expect you to do, I also give the same respect in return. So it doesn't bother me when someone follows up 6 or 10 times, or when someone asks me the same question 4 times because they haven't gotten a clear answer, because it's my responsibility to give them that clear answer. And it's my responsibility to make sure that they understand exactly what is expected of them. And so I feel like it's pretty fair, right? And I also am responsible for my end of the bargain. I made a mistake last week, and I told my leadership team today, I'm like, I'm really embarrassed. I'm really sorry. This is something that I shouldn't have done. I did it. I'm super embarrassed. This is how it happened. It won't happen again. And so I think modeling the behavior that I want them to have from a directness perspective is helpful. And so I am just as direct with myself as I am with them.
Are you an Inc. 5000 CEO looking for a unique experience? My hope is that you want to take your business to the next level. You want to gather with other Inc. 5000 CEOs, which just isn't available in most of the peer groups that you're probably able to connect with. But when we get together, it's an intimate group of people that are growing their businesses. We're learning from each other about strategy, about execution, leadership, culture, and all things growth. Plus, we actually designed this to have deep conversations to get to the real issues so that you can really grow your business. And we do something fun. We take time to race Porsche 911s. You'll be paired with a professional driver. It'll be something that you can do that's very different than you've ever done before. Join us for this event. It's invite only, but find out more details at genehammett.com/events. One final question. We've already gone over, but just such a great interview.
Oh,
What
thanks.
do you wish I would ask you about leadership so that you could share with our audience something that we haven't touched on today?
What do I wish you would ask me? I wish that someone would ask how much time should you spend learning versus doing? I think there's an inverse relationship between growth and learning. In that I learn, and then I go do, and then I have to take a step back and learn some more. And you think that learning sort of happens all the time and that you're sort of taking in all this information and maybe you're listening to podcasts or you're, reading books or whatever all the time. But in reality, you can't. If you're in do mode, you're just in do mode. And so I have to take a break from the business and focus on learning. And usually it's like one thing, right? So like reading Greg Crabtree's book, Simple Numbers, took me a full 3 days, and I had to stop what I was doing and read this book. Like I just had to read it in order to understand what the company, what he was trying to tell me. And really appreciate it. Been a customer a long time, super happy, but I need to take a break and learn. And if I don't take a break and learn, if I don't spend time learning about how to run a business, then the company won't grow. And so I think we don't talk about learning enough. Maybe even more specifically, female entrepreneurs don't talk about the value of taking care of yourself and all the sort of buzzwords. But for me, it's about learning what's coming next and really taking time to sit down and think about it before I go and do again.
I really appreciate you sharing with us, and it really has been incredible to have you on the podcast.
Hey, it was great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great interview with Kara. She is a pistol. She is on fire. And she had told me afterwards, she's always like that. She's like that from the moment she wakes up until the moment she goes to bed. It's just high energy, high output, and very direct. Great to get to know her on this podcast. I'd met her briefly in person last week in Atlanta, which is where we both live. And it was great to be on the show with her today. When you think about your own growth, make sure you keep it in check and you make sure you're continuously moving and growing as a CEO or as a leader inside your company. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, LeadCoverage. We'll see you next time.